Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. It's a beautiful day here in the springtime here in Pennsylvania. You know, I just love the springtime. It's time of renewal and rebirth, and you know, the birds really start singing. So anyhow, today I wanted to share with you how you can plant your broccoli in your garden. And I'm going to be planting 3 varieties: the Imperial, Pac-Man, and then the Gypsy. And so I'm really glad you could join me today. So the 3 varieties of broccoli that I'm growing today, as I mentioned earlier, one of them is Pac-Man. And so the Pac-Man is an early loose head and lots of side shoots. And then the Gypsy is a large head variety. And then the Imperial is late and also a large head. And so the Imperial being a late variety, you know, this way that you plant in succession or intervals. You know, we'll get the Pac-Man, which is a large head, but and it's also early. It'll develop and mature earlier than the Gypsy, and so where the Imperial then is a late variety, and so you won't have all your broccoli coming in at one time. So what I did is I ended up getting these seedlings or transplants. I got them from a raised nursery near me, and they're like $1.60 for a market pack, and these come in packs of 6. And so, you know, it's a really good deal. I don't have enough time on my schedule to plant these by seed in the basement indoors. And so a lot of my greens, like my kale and spinach and Swiss chard, I'll direct seed them out in the garden, and I'll also sow some indoors. But I have 18 plants here, and so I'm going to get started planting these. But before we get started planting these seedlings or transplants, let's just take a moment and we'll talk about soil preparation in your garden. You know, you want to make sure your soil's nice and loose. Here in our Plant Smart Living gardens, I use mostly composted mulch amended with topsoil. So I used to use a cultivator years ago, but I got away from that because it really does disturb the soil web of microbes and organisms in the soil. And so I just mostly use my garden fork here in this 18-foot by 30-foot section. This is where I'm planting these on the very end. I end up planting my broccoli here every year, and so I really don't rotate my crops here in our gardens. I add about 2 to 3 inches of fresh compost every year, and it's really never been an issue here. So it really does help keep the garden simplified here. And so, you know, you just want to work this through your soil, make sure it's nice and loose, up and down your rows. And then, you know, once you get your soil nice and loose, what I use here is I use the alfalfa pellets to add nutrients to the soil. I get them from a horse feed place, a 50-pound bag, and you can see them here. These are the pellets. You can also get it in the meal too, which is even better. That way it will break down even quicker. But these are a nice long season or slow release fertilizer for your vegetable garden. And so what I'm going to do is just sprinkle these nice down each row. And then this way, these will slow release fertilizer into the soil. And these have a NPK of 3-2-2. 3% nitrogen, 2% phosphorus, and 2% potassium. And so these will just work their way into the soil. The soil microbes will begin to break these down and feed the plants. It'll add some nice organic matter. And I use my trusty Garden Weasel rotary cultivator and go up and down the rows, work some of those pellets into the soil. And so, you know, I can't emphasize enough how it's so important to have your soil nice and loose so that the further the roots can spread out, the more nutrients they'll absorb, resulting in a much bigger plant. I say here in our garden here, maximum yield with minimal effort. And so it takes a little while to get your soil prepared right, but it's well worth it in the long run. You want to make sure you have good nutrients in your soil. And so what we're going to do next then is start laying out these plants and seedlings. So what I simply did was get my measuring tape, and I came in 12 inches from each side, and I stuck in my tent pole. Any type of stick will do. And then I came over another 24 inches for another row. This bed here is basically 4 feet wide. I'm also going to be eventually putting my row covers over these to keep the looper worm off of them, the yellow butterfly that flies around laying eggs on these plants. And so I put a stake in where each row's going, and then I'm simply going to just take this. This is an 8-foot piece of a 2x4 that I ripped down to about an inch thick, and then I'm just going to screed off of those 2 poles. So that's going to give me where my row's going to go. And then also on this pole here, what I did is I came in every 2 foot and I put a slash. I also came in every 18 inches and put a circle here. And this way I'm going to be planting these 18 inches apart. And so this is a nice memory stick. All the layout's already done for you, and so it makes laying out your plants go a lot quicker and easier. I don't normally like walking on my gardens here, but for video purposes I have to do it right here. And so what you can simply do then is just lay down your pole and then start your plants. So when you get your market packs, you want to also inspect your root system on them. Make sure they're not really root bound. It never hurts to pull them out of the pack. And you don't want to have the plants too mature in there and have them root bound. And so these are just about right here. And they also have the cotyledon, the leaf here. You'd want to pull off any type of dead leaf that's on the plant here. This has one. These are the original seed leaves. And so you just want to, when you buy these market packs, look at the overall health of the plant. And so anyhow, with my rows 12 inches in, and I have my stakes, and then I had laid out my pole, and so where every 18-inch mark is, I have the pole, my memory pole, back a couple inches off where each row's going. So I just simply get my hand and pull the dirt back, and then I get my 4 fingers like this and just press them around each corner of the plant. You don't really want to compact the soil, because you want the water to be able to absorb into where the plant is. And so again, every 18 inches I'm just going to simply get my hand. Now you may need a little shovel, but I always like using my hands here in the garden. They're always available. I don't have to worry about losing them. And so I'm also going to be planting some cauliflower and some cabbage. Since we're plant-based here, we just love our broccoli and our cauliflower and cabbage. We love all of our greens. And so we have one more plant here to go. Another dead leaf I had to pull off. So anyhow, it wouldn't hurt to fertilize these plants. Originally the seed itself stores nutrients for the plant, but once they develop their first or second true leaf, you want to fertilize them with maybe a half-strength fertilizer. Now here I'll be using or making a compost tea out of some of my alfalfa pellets that I'm going to fertilize these. Right now, the soil being still cold, they're not going to pull any nutrients out of the soil yet. So you want to, because the soil organisms aren't really working yet. The soil's not warm enough, and so you want to just give them some half-strength fertilizer maybe once a week, until the plants start to mature. Then again you don't have to fertilize them as much. And so what I'm going to do next is going to get my watering can, and we're going to start to water these. So anyhow, this bed size here is about 4 foot by 16 foot. At the very end of the bed I have a couple feet of lettuce growing there, and so I'm ready to water this. I'll probably fertilize these in a couple days, but for now I just want to get them in the ground. They really need to be watered. Now I do have my new 2-gallon watering can, which is fine, but I also then means I have to reach over, you know, or go around. But what I did is if you've seen my other video, pre-season, my 55-gallon pre-season watering can, I went and turned it on, and so I'm going to water my plants just using my hose. Again, over there, what I did is I sunk a utility pump into a 55-gallon container. That way I can water all my plants right from the container. And this way it reaches right over across where the rows are. It really just makes your watering your plants a lot nicer. I'm into, you know, making everything as user-friendly here in the garden. Again, basically, if you can have a weed-free garden and keep the pests off your plants, you're really going to enjoy your garden so much more. And like I said, I'm going to be doing or covering these with the spun bonded row cover here. I'm also doing another video on planting my cabbage and cauliflower, and also showing you how you can cover these plants with your row covers. So anyhow, I hope this was able to give you some tips and ideas on how to grow your broccoli. And so it is a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania, zone 15, and it's always nice to be out in the garden working. And you know, you may have seen me with my overalls on. My daughter's got me these last year, and so they're always nice to wear in the garden. You know, they're really heavy duty, reinforced, and you know, I would encourage you to buy a pair if you don't own any. They're nice and comfortable. They got a lot of pockets and so on. But yeah, these, I had an old pair, and they just, you know, they probably lasted me about 10 years, so it was finally time to get a new pair. So anyhow, I just want to thank you for joining me today. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.